So one of the most significant things of The Secret that was left out of The Secret, it was mentioned in my interview, but it was not included, is don't waste your time on anything that's not highest on your value.
Hi, today we're going to talk about Dr. John De Martini and an interview which he did recently on the Next Level Soul podcast. You've probably heard of Dr. John De Martini. He's quite famous for his contribution to the Secret movie from 2006. And I was always impressed by him compared to all the various people who contributed to that movie. I thought his message was the most coherent message, a message which is practical not just for making money, but for having a successful and happy life. Early on in the interview, there's a few points which he made. So we're going to take a look at a couple of those clips, and I'm going to comment on them a bit, because Dr. John De Martini, very intellectual guy, and he kind of blasts out a lot of things very, very quickly. So let's take a look.
I found that every human being, regardless of age, gender, or culture, gender spectrum or culture, moment by moment is living with a set of priorities, a set of values, things they perceive to be more to least important, most to least important, most to least or lesser importance. And that those set of values or priorities is impacting their sensory perceptions, their decision-making process in the frontal cortex and parietal cortex, and their actions, motor actions, particularly upper controlled motor actions.
What I like here is that Dr. John De Martini is pointing out the objective reality that everyone's probably half knows, which is that we have a value system and that we rate our decisions or sort our decisions according to what values we have, which set our priorities. A teenager might need to do their homework, but it's low on their priorities, whereas they don't need to go on social media, but it's high on their priorities. And so they're more than likely going to go on social media. What is interesting here is that Dr. De Martini outlines the biological structures which are affected by our value system. These structures are the frontal cortex and the prefrontal cortex. The frontal cortex is housed in the brain in the region of the forehead, and the prefrontal cortex is housed in the initial or frontal part of the frontal cortex. The frontal cortex and prefrontal cortex are heavily involved in decision-making processes, and they, along with the hippocampus, carry out a lot of decision-making processes at a subconscious level, whereby decisions are made and you don't even know they have been made. They filter out the sensory data which we are receiving and make choices based upon this. What Dr. De Martini notes here is that our value system affects our decision-making process at a biological level, and it even impacts our motor actions, how we sit, walk, and move. Indeed, our entire physiology is greatly affected by how we think about our values and priorities.
So our perception, decisions, and actions, human behavior, is a reflection or an expression of how our values are set up. I also found out that whatever's highest on the list of values, we would classify as intrinsic values. We spontaneously are inspired from within that require no external motivation to get us to do it. Like a boy who loves video games doesn't need to be motivated with reward if he does it, punishment if he doesn't, to get video games done. Mm-hmm. He may need that for something low on his values, maybe homework. But whatever's lower on the values, the lower it goes on the value list, the more extrinsically it is, extrinsic the values are, and it requires a reward to do it or a punishment to don't. You need an extrinsic force to get you to act.
Whatever is high in our priority is intrinsic and requires no extrinsic inputs. So the child has a choice between studies and social media, for example, but they value social media more than they value studies, is going to require an extrinsic, that means carrot and stick like influence, to make them study rather than go on social media.
But it's not just motor actions, it's also sensory perceptions. You spontaneously sense the pulvinar nuclei in the thalamus is a gatekeeper and filter. And all the sensory information from the spinal senses coming through the spinal cord and even into the brainstem from the special senses all go through the relay center, the thalamus, and filter it out according to what you value.
It's not simply how we perceive the world, but rather how we filter out perceptions. that really matters. The pulvinar nuclei of the thalamus act as a gatekeeper, and they provide our brain with the inputs which match our values and priorities. The very structures of our brain edit our reality according to our value system and provide us with an experience of reality which fits in with it. We can easily see this playing out in everyday life. A child sees opportunities, a depressed person sees terror everywhere, a business person sees business opportunities, an artist sees beauty and self-expression, a young couple in love literally see the world through pink-colored glasses.
They literally filter their reality according to what they value most. Now, because of that selective biased attention, confirmation bias, and false positives in the direction of what we value most, and false negatives, we overlook things that are there in things that are lower on our values, we automatically filter our reality according to our value system. Now, when you set a goal, an intention to do something, or an attention to learn something, when it's congruent and aligned with your highest value, because of that, you will spot things in your environment that most people overlook unless they're living congruently. Mm-hmm. And they'll take actions on it. And they'll make decisions rapidly because they've got plenty of information, and they'll spontaneously act.
We all have biases. It's silly to think that we don't. But we must realize that it is our filters which filter out reality according to what we value. Now, here's a very interesting point made by Dr. De Martini, that when we are congruent with our values, we actually pick up more sensory perceptions and very easily are able to make good decisions about them. Because we filter our reality according to our values, that which aligns with our values we become more open and capable of. When we love some pursuit, both on an external and internal level, it's not simply about choosing to do something to be successful, but rather it's about pursuing our passion. We will innately be better at it than simply doing something for money. Say a YouTuber, for example, who has a passion for psychology. They'll pick up on more data points and make more interesting connections when making a video about psychology than if they were to make a top 10 comedy video, because there's simply more money in top 10 comedy videos. What Dr. De Martini is indicating here is that we should pursue our passions rather than just chase after money, as we'll find it easy to become good at that which is congruent to our values. Congruency is a word which is often bandied about in maths, but it also has an English meaning in that when our outer and inner personalities are aligned, they're congruent, and we are doing that which works for both personalities. A person who takes up IT, for example, to make money, but they're actually really interested in music, will struggle to find an interest in it. Whereas, if this person, this musically inclined person, took up another career, such as to be a musician, or a music teacher, a sound engineer, or a record producer, for example, they'd be far more congruent between their career and their inner life, and they would be more likely to be successful and happy at the same time, even if they're making less money in the process.
So that's why you spontaneously act on the things that are high on your values, and your epistemological knowledge is maximum in that area, your teleological purpose is maximum in that area, and your ontological identity is maximal in that area. So you perceive yourself, if your highest value is, in my case, teaching, as a teacher, as a mother, as an entrepreneur. Your identity revolves around, your specialized knowledge is accentuated in that area, and you feel your teleological purpose is that area.
Here, Dr. De Martini uses a lot of big words, but the meaning is fairly straightforward. He speaks about epistemological knowledge, which really means that which you know about. So when you follow your passion, you tend to know more about what you're passionate about. Ontology relates to the nature of being, so your ontological identity is a type of person whom you are. Teleology relates to the ends of all things, so your teleological purpose is to pursue that which matters most to you. In simple terms, follow your passion, you'll know more about it, it will align with who you really are, and it will naturally bring you towards the goal which you are seeking. I remember some years ago watching an interview of the movie star Tony Curtis of Some Like It Hot fame. And he was talking about his career and his art as he had taken up art once his acting career was over. At the end of the interview, he thanked the interviewer for giving him an opportunity to express himself. And I thought this rather interesting. What this indicated to me is that Tony Curtis, like a lot of artists, musicians, singers, and so forth, really needed to express himself. This was his teleological purpose. When we follow our passions, we fulfill these deep inner needs of who we really are, ontological identity. We use what we really know, epistemological knowledge, and we fulfill our deepest purpose in life, theological purpose.
So one of the most significant things of The Secret that was left out of The Secret, it was mentioned in my interview, but it was not included, is don't waste your time on anything that's not highest on your value, because you will filter out sensory awareness. You will not take actions. You'll procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate. You'll need external motivation to act. So the probability of you achieving the magic of The Secret, the law of attraction, is really the degree of congruency you have with what is truly most important to you and pursue what's authentic, because your ontological identity revolves around that, and that's the most authentic you.
The Secret movie was a big success. I do remember at the time a lot of people getting excited by it. But really, it kind of portrayed the success as being simply a case of wishing for things to happen. Now, with nearly 20 years of distance between The Secret and today, many people have picked out flaws in the arguments which were outlined in The Secret. What Dr. John De Martini is noting here is that it's not enough to wish for something, but rather that the something must be aligned with who we really are, ontological identity. For this will help your entire brain, nervous system, and sensory apparatus to filter out data points and possibilities for action which will be highly successful. It's not enough to wish for something. Rather, we have to align ourselves to who we really are, what we really want, and then do everything in our power to actualize the higher representation of ourselves if we really want success in life. On a simple level, we can simply say that it's better to go with the flow than to go against the flow. And the first point of reference if you want success in life is to find out what we really want to do with our life, and then work earnestly towards fulfilling and becoming the type of person who would demonstrate that level of success. Do this, and then success will automatically follow it. That's Dr. John De Martini. And, the message that he has of congruence always makes a lot of sense to me. And it's a lot of what I talk about on this channel is that we have to be congruent. Another thing that I would just add there as a concept I like to put out is immersion. That rather than thinking too much about how do I set a goal and create a life and have a plan and all of this stuff, the most important thing is to immerse yourself in the life you want to lead tomorrow, today. So really your subconscious mind does not know the difference between the past, the present, or the future. And when we start, instead of focusing on the problems that we have, or focusing on a fantasy of a future which we might have, just start focusing on, if I want a certain life, like a sports lifestyle or a entrepreneurial lifestyle or say a musical or creative lifestyle or intellectual lifestyle, whatever it is, start living that life. Start immersing yourself. And I think that ties quite well into what Dr. John De Martini is talking about, which is be congruent. If you're congruent on the inside and the outside, the manifestation of that life will happen naturally. And the other thing I feel is not being too focused on goals as such. I know a lot of people talk about goals, and goals are useful, but we shouldn't be too worried about external markers of success, because a lot of the time you want to create something in your life. You want your life, maybe you're stuck in your job, maybe you're stuck in your lifestyle, maybe you're stuck in a relationship, and you want to go in a different way, in a better way. And if you look at TV and movies, for example, they tend to present some kind of, it's having loads of money, buy the swimming pool, sexy people, sports cars, and it's very easy because everybody can buy into these images. But what I feel is more important is living the life that makes you happy, that makes you fulfilled at a deep level, and not worrying too much about, do I have loads of money? Do I have loads of people telling me I'm great? Don't worry about that. Success will follow congruence. That when you're congruent in your life, you'll get what you need. But don't be too worried about just getting money or just getting fame or whatever it is. Work towards that lifestyle. Don't worry too much about how much money is coming in or how big you are or whatever it is. Don't worry too much about these things. Just start living the life that you want to live, say 5 years from now. Start living that life today as much as you can and make it as congruent as you can, both your inner life, your mental, emotional life, with your external life as much as you can. And you'll qualitatively have a very nice life. And after a while, bit by bit, more material success will come. Because I really feel it's more about getting that inner balance right of living your best life ever, in the sense of being true to yourself and being the sort of person you want to be and really would like to be, and have the lifestyle you really like. Not getting too worried about, are you famous? Are you recognized? Are you making loads of money? They're not that important. What's more important is the overall lifestyle, and that it satisfies you and fulfills you as a human being. I hope you like this video. Please check out the Next Level Soul podcast 52-minute interview, which got so much action-packed stuff. If you haven't checked out Dr. John De Martini, do check him out. Always a joy to listen to. He is a guy who's obviously spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff and has a lot to say of value to help you and me in our lives. So please like, subscribe if you liked the video, and I'll talk to you next time.